Welcome, everybody, to Black and Gold Weekly. It's a weekly Boston Bruins show here on YouTube in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. I am your host, John, and we are on episode 55 of the show. Another week of Bruins action in the books. A lot to talk about as this season continues to roll along and the Bruins fight for playoff positioning. And joining me once again is Danny Jaillet, who has basically become my co-host on the show. He's not a special guest anymore. He's here every week now. And Danny, we got another week in the books, a very interesting week of action for the Boston Bruins. And are you ready to get in on the action and talk a little bit of Bruins hockey?
Episode 55, the Johnny Boychuk number, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
We're on the Johnny Boychuk of episodes, and I certainly am ready to talk. It's been a very interesting week, and one that, quite frankly, overall, I'm happy with.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week for sure. Obviously, when we recorded last week on Wednesday, we knew that there was all this news coming. We knew what it was, but we didn't know the specifics of it. We had Patrice Bergeron's injury. We had Marshawns suspension. We had Tuukka Rask, first reports that he was going to retire. But we didn't have the details of all of those things when we recorded last week. Now we're recording again on Wednesday. Today is the 16th of February, and we're recording again. We have gotten the details on all of those things that we talked about last week. So I guess we'll start there. Then we'll go into these last few games for the Bruins. And then at the end, obviously, we'll talk about the upcoming games for the Bruins. But we'll catch up on where we left off last week. First off, Brad Marchand suspended 6 games for his incident with Pittsburgh Penguins goaltender Tristan Jarry. We talked a lot about it. We don't need to go through the whole thing again, but after the punch to the head and the stick jab at the face at the end of the game against Pittsburgh, Marchand gets suspended 6 games. So what did you think of the suspension? Was it too much, too little, or right around what you were expecting? What were your thoughts on that?
It was right around what I was expecting. Honestly, given his history, I thought he would maybe get a little bit more. It wasn't like, I don't want to say it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like boarding a player and, hurting the neck or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But given Marchand's history, I would have maybe thought he would have gotten a little bit more. Honestly, he should have gotten a little bit more just for his stupidity. I mean, you don't do that. You're a veteran. You've been in the league for a decade now, and it was just a stupid thing to do. But before I get on a rant, which I promised John I would not do this week, I think it was an adequate amount, and I think, quite frankly, Marchand was very lucky to only get 6.
Yeah, so I thought it was going to be 7. Like, when people were asking me, like, what do you think Marchand's going to get? My answer was 7. I thought that's what he was going to get. He got 1 less than that, so right in the ballpark there. I think if it was any other player, I mean, with the exception of, like, Tom Wilson or somebody with an extensive history, but if that was a regular player who doesn't have the history that Marchand does, I think this was going to be like a 3-game suspension. I think for a normal player, this would have been 3 games, but it got pushed up because of Marchand's history. And I definitely think that his history did not help him here whatsoever because, now he's, 8 suspensions in his career. The league gets sick of seeing the same names and going to player safety over and over and over again. So his history definitely didn't help. I agree. It was a really stupid thing to do because it didn't accomplish anything. It wasn't an act that was like in the normal game of hockey. It's not like he went and tried to throw an open ice hit and, was off on it and ended up hitting someone in the head, or he wasn't in on the forecheck and ended up boarding somebody. Like this was something that did not happen within the normal game of hockey, and it was a completely unnecessary move for a veteran player at the end of a game that you were already going to lose. There was only like 20 seconds left in a game that you were down by 2 goals. And you're the one of, if not the most important players on this team. Like you're the Bruins' best offensive player, and you go and do something just to even put yourself in this situation where you could be suspended for this length of time. It was just such a dumb play. And I mean, it was pretty much what I expected as far as punishment goes. I'm not surprised. I don't think it was that terrible. Like, it's not like he injured Tristan Jarry, but for me it was the stick swing. The stick swing at the end was really what got him, because I think if you just punch somebody, like, that happens in hockey all the time. But when he took his stick and jabbed it up into the mask of Tristan Jarry, I think that's really where he got in trouble, and where this went from something where he may have been maybe only fined or maybe suspended for a game or two, and that is what pushed it into, like 5, 6, 7 game suspension territory.
And when you look at, things that the Bruins have had to kind of deal with in regards to sticks, if you recall, there was the hit by Taylor Hall on Nathan MacKinnon that ended up being because of McKinnon's stick and not Hall. So it seems like sticks have not worked in the Bruins' favor over the past month or two. But, I mean, honestly, as far as Marchand goes, and I'll just kind of wrap it up before I rant again, this was just pure stupidity. You don't do this. I mean, it wasn't a boarding penalty, or it wasn't, something that could severely hurt, a player, but it was just pure stupidity, and this is something that you don't do. I mean, I know it's easy for me to say, and, I love, physical hockey. I love gritty hockey. I love scrums and things like that, but there's a time and a place for it, and, at the end of the game was not the time to do it. When you were already going to lose the game, you weren't going to give the team any momentum, and yet Marchand goes out and does something like that. That was just pure stupidity. So, if nothing else, I'm surprised he didn't get more games just for his stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a needless play from a veteran player who should be smarter than that. He's a guy that wears an A on his jersey. He's a guy that's been in the league now for over a decade. Like, he's got to be smarter than that. And now the Bruins are stuck without him for a significant amount of time. Luckily, so far, they've been able to kind of hold on and survive with him out of the lineup. But he definitely hurt the team and put them in a tough situation with that play. The other big news, Tuukka Rask officially retired. So last week when we were recording, we knew that this was coming. The report from The Athletic had already come out that Rask was expected to retire. He just hadn't officially done it yet. And then literally, like, right after we finished recording, like that night, Tuukka Rask officially put out that he has retired. So again, I don't want to go into. We talked a lot about it in last week's show. So if you want to hear our thoughts on, what this means for the Bruins and Rask's career and all of that, go check out last week's show because we talked quite a bit about it. But I just wanted to, touch on that. It is official now. Tuukka Rask is officially retired. He's done, not in the NHL anymore, not with the Bruins anymore. And it is back to a Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman tandem in Boston. And I have to say, Jeremy Swayman has looked really, really good the last 2 games that he's played since Rask is retired. And we'll talk more about that when we get into this past week's games. But, man, if he can keep playing this way, that will be huge for Boston.
And I wonder if, he kind of, when you're an athlete, and I could say this from my experience with my friends playing football and things like that, when you know that you're the guy now, that you're the guy that has to take over a certain position, and you're the man that everybody's going to look towards, your senses, your energy gets kind of boosted up a little bit, and you really start to kind of, zone in and focus on the task at hand. Now there's no more uncertainty in regards to who will be the number 1 guy, because there was even talk before the season started that Rask would be returning in February, and there was this whole kind of, unclear goalie picture once February hit. Now there is no unclear goalie picture. Swayman is the guy, and it's his to take. And just a quick thought. I know we don't want to get too much into this, but I almost wonder if the Bruins kind of rushed Rask back early to give him, his final couple of games to see what he could do because they knew he was at the end of his rope. Like it was a courtesy thing, maybe, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
I,
interesting.
I feel like Rask probably felt like he was ready, but then once he got actually into game action and had to go through the rigors of playing actual NHL games, I think
Yeah.
he probably realized that his body just wasn't going to hold up anymore.
Yeah, and sometimes I could also speak for my friends too. Sometimes when you get into game action versus practice or even just getting ready and working out,
Mhm.
it hits you like a ton of bricks.
Yep.
Then you realize, okay, maybe it's time to hang up the cleats or the skates or whatever, and it sucks. But
Yep.
that's sometimes your body just tells you when you need to go.
Yeah, and that definitely seems to be what happened here with Tuukka Rask. So, again, congratulations to him on a phenomenal NHL career. It's sad to see him, kind of be forced into retirement this way with an injury. But I certainly hope that he is able to have success and find happiness in whatever he does post NHL career now, and I'm sure that he's gonna be able to find whatever he wants to do and be able to do a good job at it. And he's definitely a one of the best goalies of this last decade or so in the NHL. He put up some great numbers and had a great career.
Yeah, and he gets to live life without being, completely hurt or unable to move, and he's
Hmm.
accomplished a lot. So there's something to be said for that with athletes as well. I mean, your body can only take so much, and he gets to retire fairly young and enjoy
Yep.
the rest of his life. So I'm excited to see what's happening down the road for him. I really am.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So the final, just kind of touch-up news from what happened last week was Patrice Bergeron getting injured in the Pittsburgh game. Collision with Sidney Crosby. He fell into the boards. His head hit the boards. It left the game, did not return. It did not look good. Luckily, it doesn't seem to be, the kind of head injury that's going to keep him out for a long, long time. But he has missed the past few games here for the Bruins. Now the past three: Carolina, Ottawa, and the Rangers game and last night. And there's talk that he may be back on Thursday. He is on this current three-game road trip with the Bruins. He did not play against the Rangers on Tuesday, but it looks like there is a chance that he returns Thursday against the Islanders, and if not Thursday, probably then Saturday against Ottawa. But he did make the trip with the Bruins, which is a very positive sign because that means that they think that he's close and that he may be able to play in at least one of these road trip games. So hopefully Bergeron is back. But again, much like with Marchand out for these last three games, the Bruins have somewhat been able to tread water without him.
And this is all that we really wanted from the Bruins, right? We wanted them to not have their season collapse completely with two of their biggest stars
Yeah.
out for an extended period of time. And so far, they've been able to hold water really well, tread water, whatever you want to call it. They've been able to do that. And, some may look at the schedule and say, oh, well, for example, Ottawa, is not, a top tier team. But you know what? You play who's on the schedule. And the Bruins certainly did that this week. I mean, they did that this week. They did what they needed to do, and hopefully they can keep this up. And truthfully, the guy that I'm gonna be looking forward to towards the stretch is Bruce Cassidy. How
Mm-hmm.
can he get the team to continue to play, well? And because I think some of his best work, right? Some of his best work has been when he has younger players to work with, and he has to try to fit them in certain areas. One of the things that I really thought was great about him when he took over at the end of 2016, 2017 was that he got a lot of the younger Bruins players to buy into what he was doing, and we've talked about this
Mm-hmm.
on the show before. And he's been pretty good at trying to put players in the best positions to succeed. And now, he's going to kind of have to do that again a little bit as some of his stars get healthy. And I think that's something that favors him from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah, he's definitely going to have to do a good
Yeah.
coaching job down the stretch here. This is definitely going to be a test for him and the entire coaching staff to, make sure that this team stays on track, make sure that this team gets into the playoffs, and, make sure that this team is winning the games that they need to win. With regards to the Ottawa win, it's easy to say, it's the Ottawa Senators. Of course they won that game, but yeah, Ottawa is a team that the Bruins should beat, but there are no easy games in the NHL. And Ottawa last week beat the Carolina Hurricanes.
They
And
did.
Ottawa last week beat the Washington Capitals. So let's not act like Ottawa can't win against good teams. They haven't won a ton of games this year, but they always play hard. And that was a tough spot for the Bruins coming off of a terrible loss without two of their best players. I was honestly impressed with the way that they came out and played, especially in the first period of that Ottawa game. And, I think that's, even though it's against the Senators, I still think that that's a quality win because they were in a really tough spot in that game and they did what it took to get the 2 points. And that's what good teams do. They get the 2 points.
Yeah, and the teams like the Senators who are young, plucky, have nothing to lose, those are often the scariest matchups
Yeah.
because they will play you from end to end, from goal to goal, from when the buzzer starts to when the buzzer ends. And that was definitely, I would consider, a quality win for the Bruins because, they needed to kind of get some momentum going heading into Tuesday's matchup with New York, and they were able to get it done. I mean, the Bruins aren't at their strongest either, and the Senators had nothing to lose, so that was one that I was not necessarily guaranteeing a win, and the Bruins did not let me down, which is good, and they were able to get it done.
Yeah, all right. So with that, we're talking about these past few games. Let's delve into these past 3 games now for the Bruins since we last recorded last Wednesday. So that obviously, unfortunately, we have to start off with this absolute atrocity against the Carolina Hurricanes on Thursday night. I unfortunately watched this game. I don't know why. I probably should have stopped after the second period, but I unfortunately watched this game, and it was not a fun time. It was not an enjoyable night of hockey at all. With the exception of the first period. I actually thought the first period was kind of good. Like, it had a real playoff feel to it. There was some physicality, some chippiness, nastiness between the teams. Carolina scored 1 goal, but it was 1-0 at the end of the first. It's not like this game was over early. Like, I actually thought that the first period was a pretty fun period to watch. And then things absolutely fell apart. In the second period, Boston gave up 3 goals in the second period to go down 4-0. Was not able to really find any sort of offense at all. They got outshot in this game 43-34. Carolina went 2 for 4 on the power play, so the Bruins penalty kill did not have it. The defense in this game was absolutely abysmal. I feel bad for Linus Ullmark because his numbers look terrible at the end of this. Like he gave up all 5 goals for Carolina here. He only had an .860 save percentage, but he got completely hung out to dry in this game. Carolina even had 5 shots on goal shorthanded. Meaning when the Bruins were on the power play, Carolina still got 5 shots on goal. And this was just one of those absolute stinkers that the Bruins from time to time put up. And once again, like last month, it was against the Carolina Hurricanes, where last month they lose to Carolina, what was it, 7-1? Now they lose 6-0. And overall, in this season, in the 3 games against the Carolina Hurricanes, the Bruins have lost all 3 and have been outscored 16-1 by Carolina. This is not the team I want to see in the playoffs. This is worst case scenario for the Bruins in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it was one of those games for Carolina where they were able to pad their stats. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking down the box score here right now, and nobody finished with a minus rating, obviously. I mean, you had Sebastian Aho score 2 goals. He's one of my favorite young players to watch.
I love
Um,
Aho,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, I really love to watch him play. And you also had, a strong goalie effort, all things considered, from Anderson.
Yep.
And it was just a complete game by the Carolina Hurricanes. And the last real stinker that the Bruins had was the Carolina Hurricanes in January. So this is a team that is clearly head and shoulders above the Bruins. And as a hockey fan, I would be excited to watch them in the playoffs. But as a Bruins fan, I want nothing to do with them during the playoffs.
Yeah, this I think would be worst case scenario for the Bruins. And if we look at the standings right now, Boston's in the second wild card spot, and in all likelihood, probably going to stay there. I think there's a very good chance that Boston finishes in the second wild card spot this year. Maybe they could possibly overtake Washington for that first wild card spot, but I don't see them moving past Toronto, Florida, or Tampa Bay into a top 3 position in the Atlantic. So Boston's a wild card team, which means they're going to play the winner of one of the divisions, whether it's the Atlantic or the Metro. They're going to play the winner. Right now, Tampa Bay is leading the Atlantic, but Florida is only 1 point behind with games in hand. So I'm kind of thinking Florida is most likely going to win the Atlantic. And Carolina is in second place in the Metro, 3 points behind Pittsburgh, but they have 4 games in hand over the Penguins. I think Carolina is probably going to win the Metro, which means that the Bruins are, in all likelihood, either going to get the Hurricanes or the Panthers in the first round of the playoffs. I don't love the matchup with either of those teams, but I do not want Carolina because Carolina has been destroying Boston this year.
Coming into this game, the Hurricanes were on a 2-game losing streak. They lost to Toronto and Ottawa, and they were able to get their frustrations out on Boston when they played, and it was interesting to watch as a hockey fan because I love goals and I love scoring, but as a Bruins fan, I really wanted to turn the TV off very quickly, but I knew I had to watch it for at least some of this podcast so I can act like I know what I was talking about. But I wish I didn't have to watch it. I wish I didn't watch it at all.
Yeah, well, luckily for us, after that absolute atrocity on Thursday night, the Bruins bounced back on Saturday afternoon up in Ottawa on the road in honestly a fantastic bounce back effort without, Brad Marchand, without Patrice Bergeron, with Matt Grzelcyk missing from the lineup because he got injured in the Carolina game. 3 key players out for the Bruins, and they come back and get right back on track against the Ottawa Senators on Saturday. Outshoot the Sens 37-30, face-off dot 56%. Very physical game. 42 hits in this game for the Bruins, 44 for the Senators. That's 86 total hits in this game. Very physical game between the Bruins and the Sens. And once again, the depth scoring plays a huge role in a game that the Bruins win. Like, when the Bruins get depth scoring, they usually win the game, or at least get a point out of the game. When they don't, those are the games a lot of times that the Bruins lose. In this game, the Bruins win 2-0. Shutout win for Jeremy Swayman in goal, who played absolutely outstanding, and we'll get more into him in a minute. But Trent Frederic scores his 3rd goal of the season 45 seconds into the game. Curtis Lazar follows it up with his 6th goal of the season. And it's basically 2 fourth-line guys for the Bruins that score in this game, and those are the only goal scorers, and the Bruins win. Another game where the depth scoring comes through. The Bruins lock it down defensively, and they get 2 points in a tough game against a team that they should beat, but is always going to give you a hard matchup.
And even when you look at the guys that didn't score in terms of depth, they were able to make an impact. You had Antoine Blee with 3 shots. You had Jack Studnicka with
Yep.
3 shots. You had Craig Smith with 3 shots. You had Eric Hollow with 3 shots. Lazar with 3 shots. I mean, everybody was active in this game, and it was great to see because we've talked about it all this season. It seems the depth scoring needs to be a focal point for the Bruins, and it
Yep.
needed to be a focal point for the Bruins with Pasta, Marshy, and Bergeron on the ice. But now that Marchand and Bergeron aren't here right now, they really need to step up in terms of the depth scoring and depth activity, I'll say. And they were able to do that. You saw a bunch of players get involved, and this was another case where, we often wondered, did Don Sweeney make the right moves during the course of this offseason? And it's games like this that kind of, showed us why he made the moves and what these players could do um, in terms of reaching their full potential. And this was, I think, a very solid game. Jeremy Swayman, coming off of 30 saves against Ottawa here, and he was able to kind of make a statement. He's now the full-time goalie. What can he do? The spotlight is on him. He goes and gets a shutout against the Senators.
Yeah, I mean, this was a massive game for Jeremy Swayman, who's looked great in his past couple of starts. This was his first start after it became official that Rask was done and retiring. And what does he do? He goes out there and gets a 30 save shutout.
Yep.
I mean, talk about a statement there from Jeremy Swayman in a game that the Bruins really needed it after giving up 6 to the Hurricanes the game before, really having one of their worst games of the year. They came out, and I remember watching the first shift of this game. It was Frederick, Coyle, and Smith, and they just got the puck into the offensive zone and kept it there and just kept on working until they finally scored. And then Frederick scored 45 seconds into the game. And it looked like a completely different Bruins team on Saturday than the team that played on Thursday. They were much, much better defensively. Their effort level was much higher. It was just all around a significantly better overall game from the Bruins on Saturday. And again, Ottawa's not a team that wins a lot of games or, high in the standings this year, but Ottawa plays really hard, and they've given good teams tough games all season long. And for the Bruins to be able to come out there, go on the road, bounce back from a terrible loss without, 3 key players in the lineup, for them to be able to come out and win this game, I think, really does say something and is a good sign for the Bruins.
And it gives a guy like Jeremy Swayman a confidence boost because,
Absolutely.
he hasn't really played a full season yet. And there were questions that you and I had in regards to he's seen, game action, but it's been a relatively small sample size. And now, he's got, like I said earlier in the show, the weight of being the number one goaltender on his shoulders. What does he do? He goes out and gets a shutout, and he gives the Bruins a much needed win in what could have been a trap game.
Yeah, absolutely. So much better performance against the Ottawa Senators on Saturday afternoon. Bruins get another win. They get a win in the win column, which they needed for sure.
Absolutely.
To break their losing streak that they had going into this game. And then we go to last night. Then we go to Tuesday night after a couple of days off. They have the New York Rangers on the road in New York, Madison Square Garden. This was a game I watched every single second of, and holy cow, what a hockey game this was. Unfortunately, the Bruins come up a little bit short in the shootout. It was a 9-round shootout between the Bruins and the Rangers, and the Bruins come up a little bit short. But overall, this was another really solid effort. And Jeremy Swayman, once again, in back-to-back starts, has an outstanding game in goal.
Yeah, he has. And have you ever been to Madison Square Garden? It always looks cool on TV. I want to go one day.
I have never been, but I definitely want to go.
Yeah, but no, I definitely want to go as well. And it appeared to me on Tuesday that Jeremy Swayman and the Bruins were ready to make an impact in Madison Square Garden. As you know, I thought this was going to be when looking at the schedule, prior to this game,
Hmm.
I honestly was expecting a Carolina-esque outcome. I honestly thought the Rangers would sort of blow out the Bruins a little bit. I wasn't really too sure about this game, especially with Swayman kind of easing into the number one role here, but they surprised me. I thought they did a really good job of, playing tightly, not making too many mistakes, and not doing anything that would change the momentum of the game in favor of the Rangers. Because Madison Square Garden is a tremendously good home ice advantage, and it's always seemed to have been a place where the Bruins struggle. It seems like they struggle there, and I always, circle that game on my calendar as a game I need to watch, and they were able to not get it done, but come pretty darn close in what was sort of a weird game, especially with the New York Rangers goaltender towards the end there.
Yeah, so this one ends 2-1 in the shootout. This was the big thing here for me was that this was another game where the Bruins played well defensively. And obviously, Swayman had a great night in goal. He only gave up the one goal, and he made 33 saves on the night. So he had another great performance in net. But the Bruins overall played fairly well defensively. They locked things down. And this is the kind of defense we need to see more of from the Bruins. Now, unfortunately, Igor Shesterkin down at the other end of the ice played equally as well as Jeremy Swayman and had a phenomenal game in goal as well. And the Bruins really weren't able to get much going offensively other than the goal from Charlie Coyle back in the first period. But all in all, this was a playoff style, very solid effort game for the Boston Bruins. And to be honest with you, I am happy to see them get a point, because this was honestly a game that without Bergeron in the lineup, without Marchand in the lineup, Grzelcyk was back for this one, which was a good sign, but no Marchand, no Bergeron. Without those two guys in the lineup, I thought the Bruins were going to lose this game. I
And
had this one
yeah,
kind of marked off as a probable loss for the Bruins, and while they did end up eventually losing, for them to get a point out of it, I'm happy with that.
and Taylor Hall had 5 shots in this game. Although he didn't score, I thought he did a good job of getting involved
Mm-hmm.
in the play. We've kind of questioned what his impact can be because he hasn't really shown the flashes that we thought he maybe could. I thought he did a good job on Tuesday night of trying to be as involved in the play as possible. And same with Anton Bleed. I thought he had 3 shots, and throughout these past couple of games, I thought he's done a good job of trying to involve himself in the play offensively. He's a player that has really kind of, found his groove. I know I say that all the time, but he's been able to find his groove with this Bruins team, and he's certainly seen his stock rise over the past month and a half, particularly.
Yeah, I think Anton Bleed's playing really, really well on that fourth line.
Mm,
Him and Curtis Lazar in particular seem to play really well
yep.
together. I've noticed that these last few games where those two are really clicking together. And I think Bleed's had an overall very, very good season this year on the fourth line for the Bruins. Also, this line with Trent Frederick, Charlie Coyle, and Craig Smith is
Mm.
kind of a weird combination. It's not a trio that you would necessarily expect to be
Yep.
together, but they've looked really, really good together on the same line. They had a great game against Ottawa. They were responsible for the first goal. They had another really strong performance against the Rangers last night, also responsible for the first goal with Charlie Coyle scoring. I don't know what it is about that trio, but they've played really well together these last couple games.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall in practice and see kind of how these lines come together,
Mm-hmm.
because I wonder if they've found something in practice that's obviously translated to the games. And when you look at a guy like Charlie Coyle, right, he's not a finesse guy in the sense of a high goal scorer, but he handles the puck really well
Yep.
and he can make plays happen. When you look at a player like Trent Frederick, he's physicality. He's not exactly the same sort of finesse player that Charlie Coyle is, but he can make things happen. And then Lazar, he's kind of in that same mold as well, except I think he can handle the puck a little bit better than Frederick. So that
Hmm.
kind of gives you a balanced line and a line with depth and experience. And I really think that, this is exactly the type of thing that the Bruins need as we get closer to the playoffs and as they even go through this stretch here, because we've talked before about depth and line balance and things like that. And it's great to see this line really come together.
Yeah, so the shootout was interesting. I kind of want to talk about who the Bruins picked here, um, as their shooters, because there were some interesting decisions made, I think, on Bruce Cassidy's part here. So Jake DeBrusk starts out the shootout, which I'm not surprised. He's one of their best shootout guys. He scores. So already good pick there. Mika Zibanejad goes for the Rangers, ties it up. He scores as well. Pastrnak goes second. Again, not surprising. He's probably the most talented offensive player for the Bruins, with Marchand out of the lineup. He gets stopped. Then Panarin goes for the Rangers and scores. So the Bruins are now down. They send out Charlie Coyle as a third shooter, who I honestly think this probably would have been Marchand or Bergeron if they were
Yeah.
available. But with those two guys out of the lineup, Coyle is kind of next in line, I guess. And Coyle scores, ties the shootout back up. Swayman finally gets a save on Lafreniere. And all of a sudden, we're going to extra rounds in the shootout beyond the top three. Boston's first shooter in the extra round is Eric Haula.
Hmm.
I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would honestly, you made no mention of Taylor Hall yet, have you?
No,
I
Taylor
would have
Hall went next after Haula.
I would have maybe, if Cassidy was so hell bent on putting Hall out there, I would have maybe gone Hall and then Holla. I mean, he
Yeah.
obviously saw something with Holla, so, but I would have gone Hall first before Holla. That's
Oh,
interesting.
I completely agree,
It
but that's
wasn't.
not even the weirdest part. So then, after Eric Haula gets stopped, Taylor Hall goes next. He gets stopped as well. Then Charlie McAvoy goes. Now, I'm not gonna bash on the McAvoy pick because he's your number one D man. He's your, supposed to be your Norris level guy. So if you're getting this deep into a shootout, I mean, why not put out your best defenseman? So I'm not really concerned about the McAvoy pick. He should have been going at some point in this. But then Trent Frederick and Nick
Hmm.
Foligno are the next two Bruins to shoot, which I found very, very just weird. Like, why are Trent Frederick and Nick Foligno going in the shootout before Craig Smith,
Hmm.
before Jack Studnicka,
Hmm.
even like a guy like Mike Riley or Matt Grzelcyk, one of those two, who's kind of an offensive defenseman? Like, you're putting out fourth line grinders ahead of clearly more talented offensive players. I just thought those two in particular were very weird shootout selections.
When I think of high scoring opportunity players, I think of Trent Frederick and Nick Foligno. No, but yeah, that was a little bit weird. I think I have to question Coach Cassidy on that one there. Wondering if it was, I'm wondering what his thinking process was there. But it sounds like it was like me putting together a shootout roster on NHL, 22 and just rolling with it. But unfortunately, this is not a video game.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was weird, like that they would. I mean, Craig Smith is not having a great year, but he's still certainly a more talented offensive player
You can
than
get the
either
puck in the
Trent
net.
Frederick or Nick
Yeah.
Foligno. And
Yeah.
and I think you could say the same. I mean, the fact that Jack Studnicka didn't even shoot. I mean, I know he's a call up from the AHL, but when he's down in Providence, he's one of their star offensive players. He's one of the first shooters in Providence in the shootout. Like, he's got experience in the shootout. He's got good hands and scoring ability. Like, those are guys I think that should have gone before somebody like Trent Frederick or Nick Foligno in this shootout.
Yeah, I really have to wonder what Bruce Cassidy was trying to
The
do
only
there.
the only thing I can really think of is that he was trying to catch Shesterkin and the Rangers off guard. Where, like, maybe, it's such an unexpected guy coming down on you. You don't have any, knowledge of what his go-to move is. You don't know what he's going to do. And you're trying to catch the goalie off guard, possibly. Because I'm sure Igor Shesterkin has studied Trent Frederick's shootout abilities. Like, I'm sure that's what he's spending his pregame time on. Like, that's the only thing I can think of is that they were trying to catch Shesterkin completely off guard. And kind of throw him for a loop with having these unexpected guys come down in the shootout.
And unfortunately, they didn't catch him off guard.
It didn't work. It did. If that was the strategy, it did not work because they all got stopped by Igor Shesterkin.
Yeah, you have to wonder what the strategy was there. And, it was frustrating in that moment. But overall, I was happy with the Bruins' effort in New York. I mean, you take a look at some of the young talent the Rangers have and some of the talent overall, Panarin, Fox, this Rangers team is very good. So, I mean, overall, even though it was a frustrating end to the night, I think it was a great preview of, maybe, something to come in the future down the road in the playoffs. If, we'll see. I mean, but overall, it was a wild game between Shesterkin having to leave the ice, and then
I want to talk about that before we move on, because I was streaming this game and I honestly got pretty mad for the Rangers. I'm not even a Rangers fan, obviously, but 40 seconds to go all right, we got to go back even before that. So we're in 3-on-3 overtime. Teams are going up and down the ice, back and forth. Eventually, we have a collision at the top of the crease between Craig Smith from the Bruins and Igor Shesterkin, the Rangers goaltender. Now, mind you, Shesterkin has been on fire throughout this game. Spectacular performance in goal. He's been great. He's been on fire all season for the Rangers. I think he's probably the Vezina favorite right now, but that's kind of beside the point. Shesterkin's playing great in this game, only gives up one goal. Big reason why the Rangers are, in an overtime game right now, keeping the Bruins off the board. We have this collision in overtime, and then play continues. Play continues, keeps going on for another few minutes and whatnot. Then with 40 seconds to go in overtime, all of a sudden, the concussion spotter pulls Shesterkin from the game and makes the referees take him off the ice. And he's right after he makes a great glove save, And then all of a sudden he's getting pulled off the ice and everybody's like, what is going on? And he is furious. He smashes his stick on the glass as he goes off. Like, he's so mad. And I don't blame him one bit because this I thought was absolutely ridiculous. But he has to leave the ice, misses the final 40 seconds of overtime. Alexander Georgiev has to come in. I don't think Georgiev even saw a shot in the 40 seconds that he was in. And then Shesterkin, after being cleared by the Rangers doctor, comes back for the shootout, plays in the shootout, and wins the game for the Rangers. All in all, I have to say this is one of the most weird things that I've ever seen in an NHL game. And I do not blame the Rangers or Shesterkin or Rangers fans at all for being upset because I thought this was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it was one of the weirdest things that I've honestly seen in a hockey game, and it didn't look like on the TV that anything was wrong.
No, he just made a fantastic glove save, and now they're like, get off the ice. It's like, are you kidding me?
I wonder what they spotted. I wonder what the concussion spotter spotted necessarily.
Yeah,
I wonder what
I
that
don't know.
test was.
I get like everything with concussions and for player safety, and they're trying to keep the players as safe as possible, and they're certainly trying to protect players from themselves because even if a guy's hurt, if you ask him if he's okay, he's gonna say that he's fine. And he's going to want to be out there, and he's going to try and play through the injury. And they obviously don't want that, particularly with concussions. But this was a situation where, like, what did they see that made them think that they needed to get Shesterkin off the ice, particularly with only 40 seconds to go? It's not like anything was really going to happen in those 40 seconds. And I don't know. I just thought it was kind of ridiculous to pull the starting goaltender who's playing absolutely outstanding out of an overtime game. Like that to me, imagine if that was the playoffs. Imagine
Yeah.
if that was a playoff game. In game 7 of a playoff series, Shesterkin is in overtime, and you pull him off the ice in game 7 of a playoff series, and then the other team scores on Georgiev, and the series is over because the NHL pulls a starting goaltender off the ice. Like, that is a slippery slope to go down, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I honestly wonder what they saw. And, I do, like you said, I understand that they're trying to make the game safer, but I would have at least let him finish up the 40 seconds. I mean, if it didn't appear that there was anything wrong with him, if he was like falling on the ice or putting
Yeah.
his head down and like dizzy or
If he
something,
was
then
like hunched
yeah,
over or
yeah,
like off balance or,
yeah.
like struggling to skate, like obviously at that point something is wrong. But what I don't like, the play before, he literally made like this flashing glove save. I'm like, if you're concussed, you're probably not snatching the puck out of the air with the glove like that.
Yeah. No, so it made no sense, but and he had apologized. I just read an article. He just said he was sorry for slamming his stick, but I definitely understand his frustrations. I know I would be frustrated as well, but at the end of the day, he was able to deliver for the Rangers in what was a very tight and tough game. It certainly had that playoff feel to it, didn't it?
Oh, 100%. And I'm glad he was at least able to come back and be the goaltender in the shootout because he 100% deserved that win with how well he played. He absolutely deserved that win. So I'm glad that he was at least able to come back for the shootout and win the game for the Rangers.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think the Rangers, just generally speaking, are going to be a fun team to watch in the coming years, and I
Oh,
think
yeah.
they're going to continue to give the Bruins trouble. It's kind of, impressive how quickly they have been able to kind of rebuild here,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you consider that they had to replace Hall of Fame goalie in Henrik Lundqvist, and they were able to find Shesterkin.
Yep.
That is certainly going to work in their favor, and it's a credit to their scouting department, as we talked about last week with the Bruins, which I'm not going to rant about again, but a credit to their scouting department and the talent evaluators, because the Rangers are certainly headed in the right direction, and it's good for the league when original six teams are good because it certainly adds fuel to the rivalries. For sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and it's great to have the Rangers be a good team again, be a playoff team again. I think the NHL is better when the New York Rangers are good. And it certainly, when you have the Bruins and Rangers good at the same time, you get that Boston versus New York going. And I
Yep.
think that also is good for the NHL as well. So,
It's not there with the Red Sox and Yankees anymore, really. So, I mean, yeah, I guess kind of in the playoff play-in game this
yeah.
past October there
I
was a
don't know.
little
I
bit,
feel
but
like Red Sox Yankees doesn't have the same bite that it did, even just like
yeah,
3 or 4 years ago. I feel like it's kind
yeah.
of dipped down again.
Well, I feel like, and kind of get off track here, but you know, the old Red Sox and Yankees, like Veritek and A-Rod, they legitimately did not like each other. Jeter and Garcia Parra, even back in the day, I don't
Yep.
really think they liked each other too much. But focusing back on hockey here, I always love to give Massachusetts shout-outs. Chris Kreider's having an outstanding season for the Rangers,
Oh yeah.
and he's been a big reason why they've been able to kind of have their success.
Yeah. I mean, he's up near the top of the league in goals this year. Best season goal scoring wise of his
Yeah,
career. And Boston College product. I remember watching him at Boston College,
I do
and
too.
now he's tearing it up for the New York Rangers. He's been with the Rangers' entire career, and he's having a spectacular season this year for New York. So big shout out to Chris Kreider, BC product, getting it done for New York this year. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, 1-1-1 over these last 3 games for the Boston Bruins, which is what I was hoping for when we did last week, when we talked about this next 3-game set. I was like, I hope they can at least go 1-1-1, and they were able to do that. So, guess can't really complain. They're treading water. Without Patrice Bergeron, without Brad Marchand, they're still treading water.
And it's a credit to the depth players, like we said earlier in the show. It really is. And now is where you can get a good sense if you're Bruce Cassidy. Can I count on certain guys in key situations that may not normally be in these types of situations? And I
Yep.
think for this week, the answer has been yes.
All right, so now we're going to take a look ahead to the upcoming set of games here for the Bruins. So if you missed it earlier, we are recording this on Wednesday, February 16th. So looking at Wednesday to Wednesday here of the Bruins' next few games, they've got 3 coming up. They finish out their road trip for the next couple of games. They are at the New York Islanders on the 17th, Thursday night, which that game will have happened by the time you guys see this show on Friday. Then the 19th, they have another Saturday matchup with the Ottawa Senators up in Ottawa for the second week in a row. And then they come back home on Monday the 21st, which is President's Day. They have an afternoon holiday matinee against the very tough Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, we all know what happened the last time the Bruins and Avalanche played. And they'll be playing in Boston this time on the 21st. And then later next week, they have some more games coming up. They go back out on the road, but we'll talk about those in next week's show. I want to focus on these next 3 games: Islanders, Senators, and Avalanche. What are you thinking here as they go on the road for the first couple and then back home against Colorado?
2-1.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make any crazy predictions about the avalanche of goals last time because, and I don't know if we can swear, but I don't want it to bite me in the ass again. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't really bite us the first time. The Bruins did end up losing, but I remember we went on one of our famous rants and absolutely trashed the Bruins' chances with the Avalanche for
and then
at
it was
least
an
15
overtime
minutes.
game. Yeah. Yeah,
It
we made it seem like it was going to be 6-1, and then it was an overtime game. So
it was an overtime game for a game that started at 10 a.m. And I remember you were streaming this game, and we didn't go to bed till like 2 o'clock, and it was absolutely ridiculous, a waste of my time in the end. But anyway, I'm saying 2-1, 2-1-1. I think the easiest game, so to speak, in this stretch here is Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
The Islanders always play the Bruins tough. They're 17-20, but records don't mean, a ton when you're playing, a team that plays you tough, and they have scores. They are gritty. We saw it in last season's playoff series, and for Ottawa, I mean, I'm counting that as a win. But like you said, and like we said earlier, they have a lot of good young talent, so you can't really overlook them. You can't overlook anybody, especially this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Colorado, I don't see that working in the Bruins' favor. I think based off of what we saw the last time these two teams played, I think it will be a close game. I think Colorado will have the edge, but I was really encouraged by the last time these two teams played. Now they had Marchand and Bergeron the last time these two teams played, but I think playing at home and not having to travel to the West Coast, so to speak, will help them in this case.
Yeah. So looking at these next 3 games, I would like the Bruins to win the Islanders game and the Senators game.
Yep.
I'm hoping for the Bruins to go 2-1 here. Once again, I'm going to say Colorado is a probable loss. I'm certainly not saying that the Bruins don't have a chance. I mean, they just played an overtime game a few weeks ago. Certainly
in Colorado, which is tough.
Yeah, certainly not saying that the Bruins don't have a chance, but this is going to be a really tough game for the Boston Bruins. I would say that they're probably not going to win it. The Islanders and Senators are teams I think that the Bruins should beat. Now, once again, no Brad Marchand for either of those games. Bergeron, we don't know exactly when he's going to be back. It looks like he could be back for these 2 games. He is on the trip traveling with the team, but we don't know for sure. But the Islanders are a team that's really struggling this year, not having the year that they were expecting, but are always going to play hard and always going to play the Bruins hard. So that game, I think, is maybe a little bit tougher The Ottawa game, I mean, Boston just beat Ottawa. That's a team that they should win against. They've proven that. They've shown that. I fully expect them to win that game. And then, again, Colorado, I think that's a really tough matchup. Colorado is arguably the best team in the league, certainly top 3. So, take that for what it's worth. That's not a game that Boston's going to win not many times, but we'll see what happens. Overall, I'd like to see them go 2-1 over these next 3 games.
Yeah, I would say that would be a reasonable expectation, and I'll be interested to see if the Bruins and Avalanche in particular can keep up their physicality, because there was some bad blood after Taylor Hall's hit on Landeskog. Obviously, when we talked about this,
I think that's going to play a role
on the show when it happened. It wasn't as bad as it looked, but the Avalanche made it clear that they were going to hit Taylor Hall early and often following it. So I'm going to be interested to see if that's a storyline that carries over. You just said you think that plays a role, and I think it does as well.
Yeah, I think Colorado is going to come out of the gate with definitely an attitude and a chip on their shoulder. And I don't know if they're going to try and hunt Taylor Hall down the way that they did in the second period or the latter part of the first period in the second period of the game back in January when they played. But I do think that they're going to finish every check that they have a chance to. And they're definitely going to play with an attitude. And I do think that little bit of bad blood will carry over into this game.
I'm looking forward to that game, and
I'm going to be at that game.
Oh, you're going to be at that game?
Yes.
Wow. Lucky. You're really lucky. So,
yeah.
Didn't you go to the Anaheim game?
I went to the Anaheim game, and I'm going again for this Colorado game.
That's awesome. So, yeah, so you're definitely going to have to, you can give a live report for next week's show, but that's going to be a lot of fun. I think, watching Colorado, and I hate to overlook the other teams, but Colorado's the one I'm really excited for. Yep. They just have so many talented playmakers.
Oh, yeah.
Again, Massachusetts shout-out, Cale Makar. I mean, I love watching him play. Didn't he score the overtime goal?
He scored the overtime winner against the Bruins the last time they played.
So,
UMass Amherst product.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think as long as the Bruins can take care of business with the Islanders and Senators, that should set up the stage for a great tilt with Colorado on Monday.
Yeah, I definitely hope so, because I will be in the building for that game watching it live. So really, really excited for that. But all in all, looking at where we stand right now with the Bruins, I mean, I really can't complain. Without 2 of your best players, your top offensive guys, top line guys out of the lineup, the Bruins are kind of holding their own. They're doing what they need to do. They've picked up 3 points in the last 3 games. Again, it's not great. It's not going to climb them anywhere in the standings. But the fact that they're holding their own without Marchand and Bergeron, I think is a good sign. And, at least they're not, 0-3 and in danger of dropping out of a playoff spot now. So overall, no complaints. They just got to keep kind of treading water the way that they are.
And when we don't find something to complain about, that you may be doing something all right. So hopefully they give us nothing to complain about over this next week. And like you said, and like we've said, they're treading water, and that's all we really want them to do right now. The Colorado game will be a test. Quite frankly, all these games will be a test.
Mm-hmm.
But
every game without Marchand and Bergeron's a test.
Yeah. So as long as I'm predicting another, 2-1. I was going to say 1-1, but 2-1 with the loss to Colorado. And if they can do that, we're going to be very happy come next week's show.
Yeah, and we're saying good things now. Watch them lose all 3 and us be absolutely furious for next week's show.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said if we don't have anything to complain about, then there must be something going on that's at least all right.
Yeah, all right. Well, once again, Danny, thank you so much for doing this, being on the show and talking some hockey today. It's always great to have you, and hopefully we get a great week of Bruins hockey coming up and have a lot more to talk about next week.
Thank you for having me. It's crazy to think that the month of February is halfway over already.
No, that's not.
But now we're getting into the crucial stretch of games here, the March and April games that really can affect the standings. So it's going to be a fun time from here on out, as if it's not fun enough already. But
yeah, absolutely. And that's going to bring us now here to the end of episode 55. This is the Black and Gold Weekly, a weekly Boston Bruins show here on YouTube in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. Want to give a big thank you to Mark Allred and the entire team at BNG Productions for their continued support. This show would not be happening without them, so a big shout out to them. Also want to point out some links down in the description of the video. If you guys are in the market for Boston Bruins apparel, NHL apparel from any of the 32 teams, or NCAA college apparel, it is all there using those links down in the description. They got a wide variety of products, all the usual stuff like hats and sweatshirts, t-shirts, jerseys, but also a wide variety of other accessory type products as well that are all team branded. So you can get a lot of different options. And if you're looking for anything like that, it would really be appreciated if you could check out those links in the description. So with that, it's going to bring us here to the end of episode 55. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back next week with episode 56, and we'll have a whole new week of Bruins hockey to talk about. Maybe it will be good. Maybe it will be bad. We're going to find out here over the next few days, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you guys again. Have a great weekend. See you soon.